So, welcome to another live edition of the 1901 podcast. I'm Ken Rashad. He's joined by Thomas Griffin, and we are pleased to be able to open this episode on a much happier note compared to the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Griff, we got a win last week. We killed a 2-game losing streak. Granted, this was a win. I guess you're always supposed to be pleased with a win, but this was a win that still kind of had you on the edge of your seat. And just when it was all said and done, all you could say was, "Whew, thank you, Jesus."
Yeah.
Tigers win 24-23 in a thriller over Alabama State, a game that was actually pretty critical for Alabama State with respect to trying to get that the number one position in the SWAC East. Alabama State entered this game pretty much in a situation to where they couldn't take a loss. And when you put in consideration that Alabama State faces Jackson State next Saturday, and we'll talk about that a little later, this game was extremely pivotal for them, and literally puts them in a situation now to where they, if they are going to have any chance of making the SWAC championship game representing the SWAC East, a number of things have to happen. So, like I said, we'll talk about that a little later. However, Tigers win, and the Tigers had an opportunity to don their red uniforms. We won't say anything about my position. However, but I did find a video of one very my little sister. I call her my little sister, Cherie Kirkland, who made a very compelling point as to what this was all about. Now, granted, I'm fully aware of what the reasons are for the red, given the explanation by the late great Eddie Robinson. However,
you're a black and gold guy. I get it.
There we go. Yeah, thanks for bailing me out. I'm a black and gold guy.
Yeah.
There you go. So Griff, like I said, all we can play for at this point is pride, as we indicated last week. But tell us your thoughts about Grambling's performance Saturday against Alabama State.
It was great to see them get back on track, get a big win against Alabama State. There's always room for improvement. I continue to say you have to play well or play sufficient, I would say, in order to be victorious in the league this year. I thought there were a lot of bright spots. Of course, there was still a lot of areas that were patchy. We're still not the best tackling team in the league. We made a lot of mental errors, but hey, we did what needed to be done. One thing we did do, we were able to come back and tie the game and or take the lead, and that was good to see us play. Score a little bit more second half than we had in the previous weeks, and it was good to see us put it together in terms of, I thought our running game looked well in spots. We're still, from a strategic standpoint, I think that that's still a work in progress. I'm just going to chalk that up to that we're kind of stuck there, in which we kind of do the same things week in and week out, but what we did do is win, and that's what we wanted to see us get back on track. And we beat a upper echelon SWAC school.
Yeah.
When you look at our our SWAC wins, ironically, they're against Jackson State and Alabama State, which are two of the better schools in our conference. So it just goes to show you, potentially, this win and the wins that we've come across against the better teams shows that we have the building blocks for being successful in the future.
Yeah. You know, we still are. This is a team that it's still. Yeah, I've had the conversations about whether or not, given what we've seen up to this point, is this team better than the team from last year? And it may not necessarily be a fair comparison, considering when you put in consideration that obviously that was under a completely different coaching staff and so forth. I'm of the
Yeah,
belief, given where we are right now and given where the season ends, if for whatever reason we finish 6-5, or excuse me, 6-6, well, that kind of, it's not a losing season. It's not necessarily a winning season. The best that we can hope for at this point is 75, and we're currently standing at 5-5 right now. So for what it's worth, now granted, I think last year was an 11 game season. This year is a 12 game season. But if nothing else, we successfully, and you can take this with a grain of salt, we successfully matched the number of wins that we had from last season. And with 2 more games to go, we are still in a position to where, even if for whatever reason we do finish at 6-6, we still would be better off this year compared to last year with the 5-win season. It was last year was considered an official losing season, if you will. But yet there's still a lot of football to be played. So, but let's look a minute at the team stats with the game, because the point that I was trying to make initially is that, and Griff, feel free to agree or disagree with me. I'm happy for the win, but just looking at that game, and even looking at this statistically speaking, Alabama State outplayed us. I think
yeah,
I think I say uh coming in with a quarterback who many may not be aware was actually a wide receiver at the beginning of the season. And so Alabama State, had some struggles at the quarterback position, but yet, you know, 377 total yards, 280 yards in the air, uh, 17 first downs. I mean, they were able to move the ball on us at will, especially in the air, as we saw on that last drive. I mean, good
yes,
Lord. Um,
yeah.
what are your thoughts about that?
I thought our defensive performance was, we're still, I know people are probably, what does he keep saying, chunk play? Well, that's what we do. Teams, um, for whatever reason, they are able to just move the ball at will at times. We're opportunistic sometimes, in a sense that we create turnovers, but we don't seem to tackle very well, which leads to uh, 2, 3 missed tackles on one play, where where our defense potentially could have given up a 3 yard. It turns into a 35-yard gain, and um, you know, I have no idea how you are protecting a 1 point lead and a team gets to your 10-yard line in 2 plays at the end of the game. So, Ken, I was disappointed in the way that
Yeah.
I was disappointed. I didn't think this was anything we should hang our hats on in terms of performance. I'm going to chalk it up to Eddie Robinson was with us on Saturday. And, they had a field goal. They got in position for a game-winning field goal with little to no
Well,
deep
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just, oh my God, man. Just go ahead. I'm sorry. Game winning field goal with what now? Say it again.
with I mean, at will, with little to no resistance. I was shocked. My thing is, I can see us, allowing a receiver to get open underneath, but anything over the top, with you knowing the circumstances, with you understanding that, hey, listen, what we got to do, we got to keep people in front of us. We did none of that. So you know, who do we question? Do we question the athletes, or does this fall squarely in the lap of the philosophy and the strategy that the coaches put forth?
You know what? I'm gonna. There was one person in particular, and I'm not gonna call his name, but because it was the comment was made in one of the private groups, but he made the comment, and I thought it was pretty accurate and well on and quite on point in that the team, the people who actually played out there played their hearts out. You know, you obviously have to be led by by those on the sideline. But when you look at what was on the line, giving the, as you said, especially that secondary, which, if you recall, was torched last week, pretty much in the same fashion. I don't know what it is, why that middle was left so open. It's just I cannot, for the life of me, understand how they constantly take advantage of that middle the way they did. But yet, they look, the kids made plays, but there was absolutely no excuse for Alabama State to go down the field the way they did in two plays. And if I didn't know any, but it was the exact same play, and it just really, you know, you're glad that they won, but it really, again, makes you want to question what was this coaching staff, especially defensively, thinking about when that final drive was put into play. And that, you know, there really is no excuse for it. So I think it's safe to say that it was on coaching. And you know, glad for the win, but put like this, the way that game ended was basically, if we're just gonna keep it real, the way that game ended was simply about Alabama State not being able to execute on special teams. Plain and simple. Plain
Yes,
and simple.
yes,
Um, and you know, because they certainly had a lot to play for, and
yes.
they put themselves in a position to win. They just couldn't get it done. But it wasn't due to anything that we did. Now, granted,
No,
it was a valiant effort that we were able to score 14 unanswered points. You know, we were, you know, trailing, and there's a lot to be said for that. But the fact that, and the thing is, it was hard doing that. You know, we've yet. I can't think of too many drives at all during the course of this season where we were able to just move down the field at ease. We've not had that yet that I'm aware
we
of.
only had we only had 247 total yards of offense. That is inept. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
and
inept.
most of that was on the ground.
Yes, we
Hmm.
had 171 yards rushing. Uh, the passing game was literally for 4 quarters. We were averaging right at about what 25 yards a quarter, or no, less than that. More like about 18 yards 18 yards of passing per quarter if you broke it down. And we have been inept offensively, and it's we just haven't um, had the right solution or the right series of. But it was, you know, the one bright spot is Elder, a guy
I was
who,
just, yeah. Let me pull him. But yeah, Keon, yeah, yes, Keon Elder played
yes,
lights out.
yes,
Even to the and in his final appearance at Eddie Robinson Stadium.
yes,
And I was going to get to that later, but man, when I tell you he balled, and
yes,
I hated it that, you know, he even had a kick return that was called back due to a penalty.
yes,
That was all his, man. But Keon Elder, look, man, you know what? Let me take the time right now, because I was going to save this towards the end of the show, because the reason why I was so happy to see this for him is because if there isn't one person, there may be a couple of others, but Elder has been through multiple coaching changes. And this is a guy who has gone through some highs and a lot of lows. And in a time where we are right now, with cats entering to the transfer portal because they don't necessarily want, they think it get more playing time elsewhere, or they want more money elsewhere. Keon Elder, man, I'm telling you, is the quintessential G-man. Now, granted, I'm pretty certain that a lot of that has to do with his dad.
Yes.
But Brother Elder, do know, the younger, I salute you, brother. I do. I appreciate everything that you've done. You didn't give up. You didn't quit. You hung in there, and I'm a fan. I am a fan, and wish you nothing but the best, especially these last two games of the season of your career. So salute to you. Salute. I salute you. Matter of fact, and I apologize to those of you who can't see this. I know the screen's a little the details are very small depending on where you how you're looking at this. But Elder had 17 attempts for 106 yards. We netted 104 on the ground. Trey Bradford had 42 yards net. Talbert had 42 yards net. So it was, again, a situation where, when you put in consideration what Dale J. Bailey is dealing with, it's helpful to have a running game, to kind of take that off, because let's face it, passing situations, it was a struggle. He went
It was
6 for
a
12.
struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 for 12, 76 yards and 1 touchdown. Thank God for the run game. Thank God for the run game.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about I guess you could say the running back by committee, if you will?
I think it's been it was what kept us in the game. It's what kept us competitive, and it's what kept Alabama State's offense somewhat on the sidelines. So when you look at good offenses, they are able to run the ball. You know, the running game is supposed to open up the passing game. Unfortunately, Ken, when we throw the ball, it just seems like we go vertical. And I have no problem with going vertical, just not as much as we go vertical. I mean, it's all go routes, and just like Alabama State seemed to take advantage of the middle of the field. That's something we don't do. It's next to never that we see anything over the middle. Everything is either vertical, or we'll attack somewhat to the outside. But we've gotta find a way to be more proficient, to use our weapons more effectively, and to get in. I was good to see us, use some different two back sets. It was great to see that, because I feel like
Something
Elder,
that you've talked about quite a bit during the course of the season, saying that you
yes,
wanted to see a lot more of, and we did see that
yes,
Saturday. Yeah.
yes. And I think we have some talent in the backfield. I would just like to see the best 11 players we can get on the field. And I think that Elder is one of them, along with the other backs. I think they're pretty good too, but they should be on the field more together in order to present ourselves as a team that can give the ball to multiple backs and do multiple things. At this point, it's not going to hurt us to be able to be proficient in our run game. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to give us the best chance to win. When I look at who we got left, we got Alabama A&M, and we have Southern. Both games should be competitive. I don't think we'll be outmatched by either team, but I do know it comes down to score. We have to score and be
Yeah.
effective.
Look, I said this in the private group earlier today. Say what you will about Alabama A&M. Say what you will about Connell Maynard, who was certainly on a hot seat, and is trying to make the most of, because I think A&M has they still have that game, that makeup game against FAMU, so they still have 3 games on the slate. Say what you will about A&M and Connell Maynard, who is a quarterback who played quarterback in college. They are offensive minded, and if they can't do anything else, they can score.
Yeah,
And when you put in consideration how they've played, I think that, obviously the game against UAPB wasn't much of a game, but in games in which they played Jackson State, games in which they played against Southern, they are a second half team. County Amino is one of those cats, man. He doesn't have a problem gambling. He is a straight up gambler. And we saw, I think, during the Magic City Classic when they played Alabama State, I think he was like maybe on his 25 or 30-yard line, and I think he's done this more than once, or maybe even twice during the course of the year. He'll go for it on 4th down. He will go for it, and I don't know what the conversion rate is on 4th down. I don't know what his conversion rate is on 4th down, but he is all about trying to score points, and he will take chances. And the thing is that we know A&M can score points. The thing that bothers me is that, can we score points? And because of the mindset that Maynard has, if he'll throw it if he can, he doesn't have a
yeah.
problem getting creative. If there's an opportunity to get creative, he's about scoring points. So, which I guess we can talk about that game now. That's going to be a Thursday night game. So obviously there isn't a whole lot of time to prepare for it, which afterwards we would be going into a bye week, which obviously would be, I guess, somewhat beneficial with a couple of extra days to prepare for the Bayou Classic going into the Thanksgiving weekend. So you've got a short week playing for to compete against A&M. Knowing what we know about them offensively, how do we answer that, or how do we overcome that? I mean, obviously we're going to expect a lot of the defense, but what are your initial thoughts about that game going into Thursday?
Well, I think a effective game plan would be for us to be able to run the ball effectively, and figure out. I think we come in, if we can tackle better, our defense is better. When we have a tendency to tackle poorly, it extends drives, and it takes short play. It takes plays in which we can get out of the down with a 3-yard stop or a 4-yard stop, and turns it into a 40-yard chunk play, which is always a problem. I think defensive wise, we've Ken, I want to tell you, you ask why are they open over the middle soft. Ken, we don't collision. And you cannot play zone. I see that Grambling is playing more zone, but you can't play zone and let guys just free release down the middle of the field, because even if you have a 2 safety look, you put pressure on your safety because you got all these guys uninterrupted running straight down the middle of the field. And that's what I was going to comment on your earlier comment, which was, why are people wide open? I'm watching people just staring in the backfield and not collisioning and getting to their hook curl zones or their deep 1/3 zone. You got to help those safeties out. You got to help those corners out. So if they're going to run cover 3 or cover 6 or whatever it is, sometimes I wish we could go to a cover 5 look where we go man underneath too deep, but they haven't shown that this year, so that's not something they have seemed to have implemented to the best of my knowledge. But Ken, if we run the ball and we can keep Alabama A&M's potent offense on the sideline, it would it would it would create opportunities for us to get a victory on the road.
So ultimately, as we have attempted to do, at least for the last 3 games, 2.5 games, the key for us is to continue to be successful on the ground.
Yes, and it would be
Obviously, and minimize the mistakes in that
penalties.
secondary and defense. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, minimize those penalties. You know, we
Mm.
you and I talk about these penalties week in and week out. You know, when your offense has been a little inept, it does not help to be penalized so heavily. You know, illegal formation, uh, jumping off side. I mean, it's just, those are things that I'm sure that the coaches would like to see cleaned up, as well as, those of us that are alums and fans of Grambling football. We want to see them get out there and play as mistake-free football as possible, play the best brand of football they can, and try to get things going offensively.
Let me ask you this: given where we are right now, offensively, quarterback quarterback issues being what they are slash what they've been up to this point, the running game being what it is up to this point. Let me ask you this, and I honest question, and then for those of you who are watching, I would love to hear your comments as well. Make your comments. Is Grambling one dimensional offensively?
Right now, they
Is this
are.
a one dimensional team?
Well, they're one dimensional because we're ineffective passing the ball. We
Exactly.
based on
Right. So
based on what we're doing, which is still trying to get vertical, it's not working because Ken, we can't the part throwing deep is you have to have offensive linemen that can give you a little bit more time, just a little bit more time. That's not happening. Yet we're still trying to force that round peg into a square hole. And it doesn't give you the most effective offense. And I mean the numbers bear it out. Think about it. We're not,
yeah.
I mean, it's not there. It's simply not there to get vertical. So, I would have I would think rather than and this kid is not is our third string guy, or now the guy that we're using. So what we have to do is we should make the adjustment to go more sprint out, more check downs, more intermediate routes. And that's what we should be doing, as well as I'm still waiting on Grambling to put in a reverse or try something in terms of halfback pass. I mean, at this point, man, you got to go. Man, look, we have nothing to
So
lose.
Griff, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, and would love to have a coach on to talk about this because for whatever reason we're not seeing it. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
We're
We
not
go
seeing
deep,
it.
we go vertical. Now, granted, there is the occasional screen. There is they'll run a screen. We've seen
Yes,
that, and unfortunately, sometimes it probably isn't executed the way it needs to be because sometimes that ball tends to float a little too much.
right.
And the results have been somewhat minimal at best. So I mean, we attempt some short routes every once in a while, but it's not efficient. You know, Bailey went 50% on passing, and he only how many attempts? He had let me see, 12 attempts, completed 6. That's and sometimes depending on the situation, the run may not necessarily be the option or the may not be the answer depending on what the situation may be at a given point. Because the thing that bothers me right now is, as was the case on Saturday, if this team gets down, especially early, we're going to have to the key for us to stay in it obviously is special teams. So if we for whatever reason we get in the red zone and we can't convert. Thank God we've got a decent field goal kicker who can at least get us some points if necessary. If we get in the red zone, we can't convert. Then, as much as we've talked about this defense, especially in the secondary, the defense for the most part can be opportunistic and can get you a turnover or two, and can put you in a situation where maybe you get a scoop and score, maybe you get a pick six. I'm gonna tell you now, this is to our benefit. Connell Maynard, because he has a tendency to go riverboat gambling mode, those turnovers tend to come, tend to go against him, in which we could maybe use that to our advantage, So, that's my concern, and I'll give you your final thoughts before we look at SWAC scenarios for the rest of the conference.
Anytime your defense can create turnovers, it's a plus for your offense because it gives your offense better field position.
You know what? Look, I got it. This is a great point. Now, I've heard this. We don't utilize our tight ends enough. 28 has been open all season. Man, look, let me tell you something. I can't think of that brother's name. He has been open all season. Why we don't utilize this guy, he does nothing but produce whenever he gets the ball. The few times that he has it, that it goes his way, he's good for 7 or 8 yards.
It's philosophy.
I think he's even had a touchdown or two during the course of the year.
It's philosophy, and it's game planning. If you know you got a tight end, I didn't know the kid. I mean, the kid is pretty good. We have, you know what? We don't use him. We don't. That's either a coaching decision or we have a quarterback that has not been told to use it. Because realistically, I think with the way that teams play us and with the blitz packages they use against us, we should be getting the ball to our tight end on a regular basis. He should have no less.
Marquise Harris, that's his name.
Yeah, he should have no less than 6-7 catches a game. And I promise you, if he's effective as a tight end, it will only improve our running game.
And you know what? And nothing, man. I'm not trying to bring doom and gloom into the situation as we go into this game on Thursday. But A&M was one of those games that, I'm gonna just be honest with you, man. This was one of those games that, traditionally speaking, given what Connie, look, man, this is one of those games where typically, if you got a decent team, you're not really worried about A&M. You're not.
Right.
But here we are being concerned about maybe getting down too early. We are going to be playing on the road. I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay. So I'm looking at some of these comments here. Maynard rotates 2 quarterbacks. He does do that. Let me see. What's this? He's a complete athlete on special teams, blocking. Yeah, look. I mean, he's total package. We got weapons. In other words, we've got weapons that we aren't even using. Plain and simple. And when you've got a quarterback who's young, still trying to figure it out, and I will give him credit, man, has played valiantly. I still don't think they use the RPOs enough, but I think maybe that is just him not necessarily making the right reads, because I think there have been some opportunities to where, that may have been an opportunity where you could have used your feet, but I get it. Maybe that's a decision, because my understanding is Mickey Joseph is one who isn't really too keen, at least as was the case with Miles. But my understanding is he's not one who's really too keen on his quarterbacks running the ball too often, which I understand. You want to protect them. But in those rare moments where the opportunity persists, if you're in a third and medium or a third and short, and you need 3 or 4 yards, and you know that your quarterback has the feet to get you to a first down, then sometimes, man, you just got to do it. You got to do it. Okay.
What you have to do sometimes is change up the personnel. Maybe it's time for us to take a look at a double tight set. Maybe it's time for us to look at a power eye backfield. We have we have
We got double tight set.
three
We got
very effective backs, and so why don't we utilize what we have?
Well,
I
I've seen
mean,
those double
it's
tight
all
sets.
about strategy.
Yeah, we don't use them very often, but when they were put in, when they were in place, they did well. They did work. So
Yes.
again, it's amazing. So let's get to what's in stake, because we've got 2 weeks, 2 more games left. And just to kind of give you guys some idea just how critical that loss for Alabama State was with respect to the East. Jackson State defeated Mississippi Valley on Saturday. And Jackson State was, obviously, Jackson State, Christmas came early to Jackson because you had FAMU and Jackson State, who both were in the hunt and, just basically needed to continue to win. And yet FAMU messed around and lost to Prairie View. And Prairie View tapped that butt so bad, FAMU got upset and said, you know what, I want to go fight the band because we can't beat the football team.
They did.
I'm sure there will be something coming from the SWAC office at some point later on this week with respect to some sort of disciplinary action. I don't know. And then of course, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Anytime you let the fat tuba player get under your skin, you truly have lost. I mean, boom, 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 boom. Man, why are you? And it's funny because if they had won the game, the comments coming out of the band section wouldn't have mattered. Why are you letting people in the stands? That's what people in the stands to do.
And you got to run up into the stands to go.
Yes, it's crazy.
Okay, so you got FAMU and you got Alabama State, who both had losses that, look, I don't think anyone was really expecting this, but then of course Jackson State beat Mississippi Valley, and now all Jackson State needs is just they just need a win. That's it. They play Alabama State on Saturday, and the thing is it's funny because had we lost to Alabama State, the Jackson State and Alabama State game pretty much would have been one of those games where, okay, whoever wins this is in good shape to kind of secure SWAC East.
Yes,
not going to happen because FAMU lost, Alabama State lost. Jackson State, all they got to do is just win, and they are in. Period.
Right.
So, to you folks listening to us, listen to me, Jackson State, mind your manners, and at some point, you need to go online and you need to thank your daddy, Grambling, for putting you in this position. Okay, thank daddy, and say, thank you, daddy. We're going to the SWAC championship game. All right.
Yes, they are.
Right. So now you got in the West, Southern is in a situation to where I don't know. I think I don't know if they play. Let me see. What's the situation there? I think Southern pretty much, if they win, I think they're in.
Yes.
Is that
because
the situation?
they won the have they played Southern yet? They played Southern, right?
Who? Well, I'm talking about Southern.
Alcorn. Has Southern played Alcorn?
Yeah. So Alcorn lost to Southern. That game was played earlier this year in Baton Rouge.
Then they need Southern to lose twice.
Right. So Alcorn needs to win out, but that's not good. Oh, that's right. Alcorn plays PV, and believe it or not, so here's the thing: PV, the back door is still open for PV.
Right.
PV needs to beat Alcorn. They need to win out. Let me pull their schedule up. Let's look at this because let me pull this up because Prairie View, because I don't think they were expecting to beat FAMU, to be honest with you. And the way they beat them the way they did. Let me see. Prairie View still has. They play. Yeah, they've got they got Alcorn and they've got Alabama State. So that's a tall order.
Yes.
But so Prairie View and Alcorn is basically the winner is out. The winner is out because Alcorn already lost the tiebreaker to Southern. But if they lose to PV, they'll lose the tiebreaker to PV, and I think it's safe to say they will have been eliminated for the most part. So that's what it is. If Alcorn loses and Southern wins, Southern clinches. That's what needs to happen. So if Southern loses, Southern still has they play UAPB next week. So I don't know. So look, look. So the Jags are kind of in the same situation now. Because they've got more than their fair share of ugly wins this year. They've gone into They had a five overtime session with Bethune-Cookman. That game could have easily gone away with Bethune-Cookman. They had an overtime game with Texas Southern, and they had an overtime game with there was somebody else they had an overtime game with.
Grambling.
Southern? No, I'm talking about Southern.
No, Prairie View.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So Southern had wait a minute. Southern had Prairie View had 2 overtime games this year?
I think so.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Right. Prairie View had an overtime session with Prairie View as well. So that's the situation for Southern. If Southern wins and Alcorn loses, Southern clinches the SWAC West.
Yes.
But if UAPB wins and Southern is going to need to rely, basically, I think that they will still control their own destiny. They would just have to win the Bayou Classic.
Correct.
Oh, and the Bayou Classic would be so sweet.
It would.
Because my position at that point would be, you know what? If we can't go, you can't either.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So to UAPB, because I know you got it in you. And I'm telling you, there is nothing spectacular about Southern. You know, they've had some ugly wins. And look, Doug Williams used to say all the time, I'll take an ugly win over a pretty loss any day.
Correct.
And they've had more than their fair share of ugly wins this year. But UAPB, we've seen life in UAPB. You know, they've got a quarterback and a wide receiver who, to be quite honest with you, can make they're difference makers. They can make the most of a bad situation. So it just depends any given Saturday. And that game where's that game going to be played? That game is going to be played at that's in Baton Rouge. So it's going to be an uphill. It's going to be an uphill battle for UAPB, but something just tells me. But I'm not gonna say that. But boy, I would love for Southern to trip up and lose that game, and then have to rely upon the Bayou Classic to get to the SWAC championship game. And I would love to play spoiler to that.
It would be nice.
It would be nice. In which, at that point, I guess if they were to lose, they would need Alcorn State to lose against Jackson State, which, you know, part of me thinks that if Jackson State clinches, then you know what, they wouldn't even have to play their top players. Oh my goodness, you know, I want to get ahead of myself.
Right.
But look, for those of you who are watching, look, go to the 1901podcast.com, make a donation. We are still trying to grow this thing. We appreciate those of you who've taken the time to watch this show. But we're growing. And as we get towards the end of the season, as a matter of fact, I don't know, we might be considering a watch party on Thursday, live watch party. And that could serve, to be quite honest with you, as a fundraiser as well. So look, we're trying to grow this thing, but go to the 1901podcast.com, subscribe to the newsletter. And that's free. That doesn't cost you anything. We're at 138 subscribers right now, 136 subscribers. So you know what? Subscribe to the channel. At least we're going to take this in incremental steps. Help us get to 200 subscribers. The key or the goal is 1,000. Okay, but subscribe to the channel, share it, and do all of that good stuff. So look, Tigers win 24-23 over Alabama State. We are 5-5 on the season. We've got 2 games left remaining. Alabama A&M, and then of course the Bayou Classic, with that opportunity to finish the season at 7-5. And I think we will all accept that, given how this season has gone, and given how the last 2 seasons have gone, or even the last 3 seasons at that. I think a 7-5 season would show some sort of progress, right? So hey, for Thomas Griffin, I don't know why I call you Griffin. Sorry, Griffin. For Thomas Griffin, I'm Ken Rashad. We will see you guys next time. God bless you, and go Tigers.